Welcome back, everybody. Today in this video we'll be looking at how to draw trend lines correctly. A trend line is a very good tool for traders, so that if you learn and master the use of it, you'll be able to trade and analyze the market successfully, which will in turn lead to more profit. But the problem is that most of you guys find it very difficult to draw trend lines. You don't know where to connect the dots, you don't know how to draw it correctly. So you can use trend lines, but you use it the wrong way to make analysis, and in turn you get a lot of losing trade or you get stopped out. But in this video, I'm going to explain to you the best way you can use trend line, the best way you can analyze the market with trend line, the best way you can draw trend line to analyze the market. So without wasting my time, let's get started. So as the name implies, trend lines means what? Trending lines. Trending lines. And what is a trend? We all know that in the market moves what? It doesn't move straight forward like a rocket, right? The market doesn't move, no market move, then it goes like a rocket. No, it doesn't move like that. Markets always move in zigzag pattern, as you can see here on the chart. Market always move in a way like power move, retrace, power move, retrace, and power move. That's how markets move. This is traditionally how market moves. So when you say a trend line, you must first understand the raw meaning of it, not just a line you are drawing. No, it's a trend line, which means you are drawing in the direction of the trend. It's a trending line. So if you want to draw a trend line can be used in two ways. One, trend line can be used in the direction of the market. So we can draw a trend line in the direction of the market. So which means it doesn't even touch the patterns. It doesn't touch the candlestick itself. We are just using it to identify the direction of the market. So trend lines can be used to identify the direction of the market. That's the main purpose of a trend line. Two, trend lines can also be used as diagonal support areas. So trend line serves two purposes. One, to determine the direction of a trend or the direction of the market, and two, as what? Diagonal support areas. If you don't know these two and you mix them together, then you're not going to be able to make good analysis, and you're going to get a lot of stop out. So one, using trend line to identify the trends of the market. How do you do that? How do you use trend line to identify the trend of the market? If you want to identify the trend of the market, this is what you do. After you spot the market is moving up, down, up, down, up, down, now you just draw a trend line across the markets just to determine the direction of the market. This one, the purpose is not to determine the support areas of the market. No, that's not why you drew the trend line. Because market does not always move perfectly. Sometimes the market moves anyhow, but you just want to know the direction of the trend. Is the market up or the market is down? That's the main purpose of drawing the trend line. But if you want to use the trend line to identify diagonal support areas, then you have to draw the trend line also in a different way. If you are drawing the trend, let's assume that the market is moving this way. Let's say the market is moving, so you get let me change the colors here. Let's say the market moves. Before you can identify a trend is forming, you notice that the market makes first power move, retrace back, makes other power move, and now you see this zigzag pattern. The moment you see this zigzag pattern, it's telling you that yes, trend is forming. So get ready. Which means the purpose of you drawing the trend line is to join the next pullback. That's the main purpose of drawing the trend line if you want to use it as a diagonal support areas. So you want to join the next pullback, which means first pullback, the next pullback, you want to join the next pullback and ride the market up. That is if you want to use the trend line as a diagonal support areas. You are using the trend line to find good entry, good spot where the market can retrace up to with a good candlestick confirmation, and then you take the market up. So look at the pattern. First move, second, third. When you see this zigzag pattern anywhere on the chart, it tells you that the market is likely to reverse the trend. The trend is likely forming, which means that you must be ready to draw your trend lines to ride the market up. But it's not always going to be like that. If you're using trend line for just the direction of the trend, then you don't need to analyze the market this way. But if you want to use the trend line as diagonal support areas, then this is how you have to analyze the market. So when you spot this on the market, if you spot this Z pattern, it means you are ready to enter at the next pullback. So you draw your trend lines, and then when the market hits the trend line and gives you a good confirmation pattern, now you enter the trend and you join the trend up. But market does not always move perfectly like that. Sometimes the market will move like this. move up, power move, up, retrace, power move, retrace, power move, retrace, and go. You see, the market is still trending in this phase, but it is not as perfect as this. So if you want to draw a trend line using this method, can you see? You cannot use the diagonal approach. No, you can't use the diagonal approach because the market is not trending beautifully. In this scenario, you see that though the market is making pullbacks, but the pullbacks are not equal. Can you see? The pullbacks are not equal, which means that if you want to use the trend line as a diagonal support area, you're going to miss a lot of trades. So the first scenario, you can use the trend line as a diagonal support area, but the second scenario, you cannot use it as a diagonal support area because if you do that, you're going to have a lot of missing trades. You're going to miss a lot of the trades because the trend is moving upwards, but it is not equally. The pullbacks are not equal. Let's assume that you decide to enter here, right? The market pulls 1, 2, 3. You want to enter here. You drew your trend line and you entered. Maybe it could be that it cut the trend line and successfully you got a winning trade. But the next pullback, see, the market could not pull back to the zone where this one was able to reach. Can you see? It couldn't pull back there, which means the trend was very strong. The third one also couldn't pull back there. So most of the time, if you realize that when you draw a trend line, sometimes the market will not even come and touch the trend line. The market will keep moving forward. This is because you drew the trend line as a horizontal, as a diagonal support areas. Meanwhile, the trend line was supposed to be drawn as what, just for the direction of the trend. You get it, guys? Get a difference. So the first scenario here, the market was trending beautifully, which means equal pullbacks. In this scenario, in the first scenario, which means you can use the trend line as what? Diagonal support areas. But in the second scenario, you cannot use the trend line as diagonal support areas. You have to use the trend line just to identify the direction of the trend. So how do you trade with this second one? How do you trade with this so that you're not going to have a lot of missing trades? Let's move on. If you want to trade with this particular pattern, the second pattern, where the market is not pulling back equally, then you first draw your trend line just to identify the direction of the trend, and then you use horizontal support line, like maybe rectangle 2 or any horizontal support line, which means you're going to merge the horizontal support lines with the trend lines before you can use it to trade. So let's see that on this chart. Let me bring my ruler here. I can see there is a support zone here. Can you see? Support zone. I can see there's another support zone here. So in this scenario, you use the horizontal support zones to enter the trades in the market because the market is not pulling back equally. So in this scenario, when you see that the market has hit the horizontal support zone, which is in the direction of the trend, then you try and enter the market. So here, you would have gotten a trade here to enter. You could have entered here to ride the market up. Here, you couldn't have entered because the market was very strong. But on the second pullback, you could have also entered here and then you ride the market up. Or instead of using horizontal support zones, you can also use Fibonacci in this particular case. So the first one, you can use trend line to work perfectly. You can draw the trend lines for you to touch the bottoms perfectly. But the second scenario, you can't do that, which means you can use horizontal support zones or Fibonacci to do that. So trend line can be used in two separate ways. Now, let's go to the chart. Let me show you a real example. So this is the Euro card chart, and let's go to a point where the market was trending, and let me explain this trending concept to you. Good. You can see that at this point, the market was trending. What was happening here? You could see that at this particular moment, the market hit the bottom here at this zone. The market came to hit a bottom here, so you got a double bottom, right? And the market decided to reverse, which means the market was trying to change its original trend from a downtrend to an uptrend. But you can see that it clearly stated that the market had a power move and it retraced, had another power move strongly, and it retraced. So if you are a newbie and you want to always use trend lines to identify just the diagonal support areas, you think that, oh, then let me draw my trend line across these two touches. Can you see? Yes, across these two touches, because that is where the two bases are, first one and second one. So across the two touches. But realize that the moment you entered here, the market was coming down because you entered somewhere here and the market was trying to come down. What was happening there? It was because Though this was the original trend, but the trend was also trying to switch to the other side of the trend line. When that happens, you cannot use the trend line as diagonal support areas. You have to use the trend line just to identify the trend of the market. So let's say that you saw this and you want to still enter the market. You should realize that at this zone, because the market is very steep, you must search for another horizontal support areas like this to match your confluence, okay? To just give you more confluence to take the trade. So you can see that the horizontal support areas were there, but because you didn't know, you didn't add it. If you added this horizontal support areas, you could have entered here or when the market hit the horizontal zone. So in this scenario, we cannot use the trend line as a diagonal support area because it is likely that the market would have come down a little. But let's say we saw this market when the market had already played and now we want to enter on the next pullback. Let's say the market pulled back again, right? The market pulled up and on the next pullback, we want to enter. Where were you going to draw your trend line? Guys, can you tell me? Let me clean this trend line. Where were you going to draw it? Because we've seen 1, 2, 3. So if you want to draw a trend line, are you going to draw it and pass here? No. Are you going to touch this one? No. You see, this is where most of you get confused. You will see that now the dots become more to connect. It's not just 2 dots. It's not just 3 dots. Now the dots become more to connect. So you don't know which one to connect to. That is why most of you get it wrong. And now you get confused how to trend line. So you don't know whether to connect to this one or to connect to this dot. Because now you have this one here. We have this one here. Which one should you connect to? Then you get confused. What if you also came to the market and the market had already played up to this level? Now you see, we have this dot here, we have this pullback, we have this pullback too, and now we have this pullback. So where should we connect the dots? In this scenario, this is where we use the trend line just to identify the trend. That's all. So you realize the market is on an uptrend. So just draw trend line to identify the trend on an uptrend. Don't care about it being touched because if not, you're going to have a lot of missing trades. You are going to miss most of the trades. So you don't care whether the market is going to touch or not, but you know that the market is on an uptrend. So you're going to draw your trend line just across to tell you that the market is on an uptrend. Now you use your Fibonacci tool or your horizontal support tool to help you. So you start drawing your horizontal support areas with your rectangle tools, and then you need to analyze the market in a nice, beautiful way. That is when trend lines help and horizontal support tool also help us. Can you see, after I did the horizontal support line, you realize that the markets now look very easy to read and very easy to analyze. This is how we use trend line. So in this scenario, we are using the trend line for what? For just the direction of the market. Let's go back and let me show you another example. Let's see at this moment. Can you see the market is trending? At this moment, is the market trending or not? Yes, the market is trending. But where are you going to draw your trend lines? Where are you going to draw your trend line? Yes. Are you going to draw your trend lines here? Or there? Or here? You can't tell. This is why you must master how to draw trend lines, because if you do that, then you are going to have a lot of missing trades. So you can't draw it here, and you can't draw it here, and you can't draw it here. So here you have to use the trend line as what? The direction of the market. That's all. And you add it with your horizontal support areas. So now let's see this example too. We can see that at the particular part of the chart, you can see the market was also trending beautifully. But at this zone, you can see that the market is hitting the trend line perfectly. So this is a scenario where you can use the trend line as what? As a diagonal support area, because you can see that the market is hitting the trend line beautifully. Can you see? So which means most of the time, it doesn't happen this way. Most of the time, you're going to find more of these setups. When the market is trending, but you just use the trend line to identify the original direction of the trend. That's all. It's not always the market. It's not always the trend line going to hit the market. So sometimes it can pull back. Sometimes you can see that it's not hit. Here too, it's not hit. So you can't do that. Okay, you can't use it to do that. You can only use it to identify the trend of the market, not as diagonal support areas. So if you want to use diagonal support areas, you use your horizontal tool, and then you draw your horizontal tools to analyze the market in a nice way. Can you see? So that when the markets come back to hit the horizontal areas, now you have a chance of taking the trade. It's not always the market is going to come back and hit the trend line. It's not always going to happen like that. If you think like that, you're going to have a lot of bad analysis. You're going to analyze your market badly, okay? Which will in turn lead to what? Losing trades. But at this zone, you can say the market was hitting beautifully, which means at this zone, we could have used the trend line to just identify our diagonal support areas. So that's how we use trend lines successfully. So just practice this. Go to your charts, practice it. Okay, practice it several times so that you master it. Go to the chart areas where you can see that the chart is drawing down. Then you draw your trend line to see which kind of trend line is this. Is it the one I'm going to use as diagonal support or the one I'm going to use just for my trends? So I think that will be all. So go to your chart and practice and become perfect with it.